Alright,
Quick check.
we got audio,
Yep.
we got video, we got beer,
You can hear the fire too.
we got whiskey, we got fire.
Oh.
Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm John, the creative blue collar guy, and tonight we're doing things a little bit different, but I'm joined by one of my best friends, Kory, and we're gonna get into a lot of fun stories about how we met, how we know each other, and how we're still friends 20 years later.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. So Kory graciously opened up his backyard, set up a lot of this lighting, and we got the fire going and everything. We got beer, we got some whiskey for a little bit later, and we're just gonna kind of hang out and talk. So
Yeah.
how you doing? What's new?
Pretty good. It's just finally 2022, and it seems like this Omicron is still going. So
Yeah.
we need some Autobots to come and kill this Transformer Omicron.
Oh man. All right, so I guess kind of one of the first stories we could jump into is kind of the story of sort of how we met.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of tell a little bit of the short version of my side, and then
Yeah.
you can tell your side from you and the other guys, because it's pretty funny. Kory here was in a band called Pound Foolish for a long time with his brother, some other friends, and I think you were playing, was it 4th of July?
Yeah. It was. What's the name of the festival? It was down.
Oh, it was the Miles Ahead Crusade.
Miles Ahead Crusade. Yeah.
So Pound Foolish was playing at this thing called Miles Ahead Crusade. It was a pastor from a local church that would throw this big festival every year. I was friends with one of the other bands that was playing on one of the little side stages called Convicted that was very much like a Deftones style, kind of heavy rock and stuff. So I was friends with their bass player, and I thought, well, I'm gonna go out and support my buddy at this local concert, local festival, whatever thing go. And before my friend's band played, I think they played first. Or,
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
yeah. So then Pound Foolish comes out, and I see these guys come out in these white jumpsuits. The singer had just the Claudio Sanchez, Coheed and Cambria hair, and I just thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I've never heard of these guys before. Like, bought their CD afterwards, which, by the way, I gotta point out, the CD was misleading.
It was very misleading.
So you want to talk a little bit about that first, about the CD and the demo you guys were selling?
So the CD that we made, that was from probably the year like 98 or 99.
So you guys are still in high school.
Yeah, we were a punk band, and then we lost our guitar player, and the guitar player that we got was this guy named Matt, and we called him Milky because he was very white
And he drank milk with every
drank
meal.
milk, yeah.
Didn't matter what it was. He's eating pizza, California burrito, what, he drank milk with it.
He kind of helped us change into more of like a Korn, Incubus type of a sound for our band, and so we obviously didn't have the money to create an album or an EP, so we just had to go with what we had, and what we had. And Brandon was like, well, let's just sell the Pound Foolish. And I was always like, this is so misleading, because we get up there and play songs like Wake Up and like, some like harder rock, heavy metal songs, and our CD was like pop punk, like a Blink-182 offshoot band.
Yeah. So I remember going up and buying the CD, and it did come with a burned copy of the demo that had the songs from Matt. But the first thing I see, the album, it was packaged, it had artwork, it was called Pound This, because the band was called Pound Foolish, and I popped the CD in, and right away I'm like, this isn't the band I just saw.
I want my money back.
Because they were a lot more like Korn, like Tool, like more kind of heavy progressive rock, and the whole thing. And I throw the CD in, and it sounds like I'm listening to Blink-182 all of a sudden. So anyway, so fast forward, I think I had just started driving. I had just gotten my license.
Yeah, you were 16, right? Because it was 2001, just to let people know.
Yeah. And the internet was just starting to really, become a thing. So I think you guys had like a website, or I don't even think MySpace.
No, it
was
wasn't
a thing.
MySpace. It was like an MP3 site or something.
There was some way to go on and see when their shows were.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I just totally fanboyed and just started following these guys everywhere. And so from there, you can take it from there because it's so much funnier hearing it from your guys' perspective.
Yeah. So we were obviously, you know, at a see, that was August, or no, it was August. It was
4th of July, the first time I saw you guys play.
Yeah. So I
And
just
then
graduated high school.
A couple months later, I start coming to all your shows.
Yeah, I was an 18-year-old at a high school. I, you know, gave myself to Christ, and I was like, you know, us in the band, we were just always about like ministry and trying to minister to our fans and people that followed us, and like had intentional relationships with people. And so I remember you bought our CD. I didn't really meet you that day. But then you came to another show. It was like some church out in La Mesa, and Brandon, my brother, who's the lead singer, he said, he's like, hey, this guy John's coming. We need to make like an initiative to like talk to him. I'm like, who's John? What are you talking about? And then in walks this like 16-year-old kid. I think you had your tattoo at the time too.
I had a tattoo.
Yeah.
I had dreadlocks.
Yeah. I'm like, this kid's not 16. He's got a tattoo. Like, how is that? And then you had piercings and stuff, and I was like, man, yeah. So Brandon.
So you guys thought that I was a lost soul that needed ministering to.
Yes, we were like, we need to get this kid saved.
Little to find out that they later found out that I grew up going to church too.
Yeah, exactly. So we just kind of started inviting him to things. You know, we always had that model of like, you know, that Jesus had is like, follow me. Like, we weren't going to be like, let's open our Bibles to 1 Corinthians. It was more of like, hey, we're going to do another show. You want to ride with us? And we tried to get people involved in like coming with our band and like.
We also made for built-in roadies.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I was going to the Scream Fest with you guys all the way up in Ramona, riding in the van. Yeah.
We're like, we need people to help lug the equipment and have fun with them too, you know, because it's not always fun with just like 4 guys. You get off stage and you're with each other all the time. But we're like, we liked having people around us that were like, you know, our friends and our little like posse. And so John came in as like our like, basically he wanted to be a guitar player in our band, and we just didn't have an opening for it. We could have just like let you play. I don't know why we didn't.
I think at some point there was talk of me being a second guitarist. But yeah, so at that time when I met them, I was in another band of my own with other friends, and we played a couple gigs together.
Yeah.
And
we played that one church down in Claremont that has the rainbow flag on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they had it then, but they have it now. And
I remember that church and had the purple carpet. And it's funny, I look back on the pictures from that show, and I'm wearing a Pound Foolish shirt when I'm on stage playing with my band that was called Rose of Sharon at the time. So there's another time we played a gig together, and this kind of ties into, I remember like the first time that I like hung out with you guys like outside of a show and kind of the whole thing. We played a gig together at this Christian bookstore that my mom managed.
Yes.
And so we were like out in kind of like the back alley, and I mean it was the middle of the day. It was afternoon. It was hot, but Brandon brought all the sound equipment that they had for the band and everything, and he ran sound. My band played, they played, and so after the fact, my mom saying, "Hey, I got this gift card for the guy. I want you to go give Brandon this gift card to say thanks for bringing the sound equipment, for running sound, you know, doing the whole thing." So okay, so I contact him, come out to the house in Claremont. And Kory's there, and we're kind of talking, we're hanging out.
No, I just want to point. Was that the house that we were living in across?
No, it's your mom's house where they are now.
Okay, so Brandon was living there at the time, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out because there was a point.
You were living with your dad. Brandon was living there.
Okay, because there was a point when Brandon and I lived in the motorhome in front of that house. So I just wanted to make sure.
That wasn't until Cameron was in the band.
Yeah, okay.
So I come out to the house. I give Brandon the gift card, and Kory's there too, and we're talking, we're hanging out a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Well, hey, we're getting ready to go to Bible study for the night. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, okay, sure. So leave my car at that house. I ride with Kory and his Baja Bug. Yes. And I think we could do there's a whole other super fun stories about that.
Yes. You boys been doing some drinking?
No, just setting off car alarms in the mall parking lot because we're bored. We go to the Bible study. We're driving back because my car was at his mom's house. And I remember we're driving back, and I think you were listening to A Perfect Circle in your car, or maybe you threw the CD in on the drive back. I remember it was on the way back. Listening to that.
Yeah, CDs.
And, and when you had to install your own aftermarket deck to do that, and like I already said, like growing up in church, it was kind of that thing of you're not supposed to listen to like non-Christian music,
yeah,
you're not, and especially
you're not supposed to let people know you listen to non-Christian music.
Just like how Baptists don't drink.
Yeah, no. They just don't know I drink.
So, and especially a band like Tool or A Perfect Circle, you really can't let people know that you listen to that. I had a youth pastor not exactly ask me to leave, but he like sort of politely told me that I didn't belong at youth group because I was wearing a Korn shirt one time when I was in junior high. So I find out he likes a Perfect Circle. So I'm like, oh man, you like a Perfect Circle. Do you listen to Tool? And it was a total Step Brothers moment. From that moment on, it was like, did we just become best friends?
Yes, we did.
And 20 years later.
Do you want to do Kung Fu in the basement? Yes, I do.
There's so much more room for activities. Oh man. And so then with that, you fast forward a few years later, they went through a couple different guitarists. Well, Matt was in the band.
Yeah, Matt was in.
Matt left. I was
But
still
wait. While Matt was there, we had a guy named Tim. Do you remember Tim?
No, that was before I met you guys.
Okay.
By the time I met you, Matt was the only guy playing electric guitar. So it was just you, Matt, Noah, and Brandon just before. So Matt was there for a while. He left. I was still in high school. I don't even know how. I mean, we don't need to go too deep into the story. I don't even know how you guys met Cameron, but you brought in Cameron.
He was friends with my cousins Kenny and Marky.
Carry the 7.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he was from Temecula, and Kenny grew up in Temecula.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was almost like we were looking for a guitar player, and Kenny was like, "Hey, my buddy, Cameron," because Kenny was living with us. All right, we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're back, and we figured nice transition to just go to the whiskey.
Yes.
So yeah, like I was saying, Cameron was.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. Cameron was a friend of my cousin Kenny. Kenny was living with us at the time, and so we were looking for a guitar player. And he was like, "Oh, my cousin or my friend Cameron is a good guitar player." And when someone's like, "Oh, my friend's a good guitar player," you're like, "Well, how good?"
Sure, okay.
But it's interesting because his style was completely different than what we're used to.
Yeah.
But it was kind of nice because it created it almost opened us up into new types of music, kind of softened some of our songs a little bit, but then we also kind of hardened him up a little bit. Cameron, a little shout out to you.
Yeah, because he was definitely a lot more of a guitar solo guy. Like
yes,
he
was
was
very classically trained. He wasn't just like a guy in high school that's like, I
think he was more like classic rock type of guy. Like if you did listen to rock or metal, it was the types of bands that would have like long ripping guitar solos and stuff. And yeah, he was good. But I remember there was that. I think that's where it was. There was talk of like you guys went out on the road for a while. You took the RV clear from here all the way to New York and back with Cameron. I was still in high school at the time. Yeah. And there was talk the whole time. I think even for a while, I think even Cameron was on board. Where you guys were kind of like, well, you're going to be in the band no matter what, whether you're a second guitarist or whatever. I
think you were finishing high school.
I think that road trip though, kind of you guys started maybe butting heads a little bit, maybe him and Noah more so than anyone. But, if we ever have Noah on, we'll let Noah tell those stories. There are some tensions, needless to say. And so I remember you guys came back and you were getting ready to have a meeting with him. And I was taking a buddy of mine to our tattoo artist to get tattooed. He was getting the Led Zeppelin.
And who is that? Who is that?
My friend Scott.
Okay.
Oh, the tattoo artist, Chap.
Yeah, Chap.
Hey, shout out to Chap.
Chappy.
Done every tattoo I have. His are all covered up at every tattoo he has. So I'm taking a friend of mine to Chap to get tattooed, and they were sitting down to have a meeting with guitarist Cameron, and they're like, we're gonna call you, like one way or another. You're either gonna be in as the second guitarist, or Cameron's gonna quit, or we're gonna kick him out, and then you're in. And I remember getting a call at the tattoo shop, and they were just like, Cameron's out, you're in.
Yeah. So
like,
then
I had just graduated.
we immediately set up a practice, and we were like, this is like a few years later. So I want to say that was probably 2004. We met you in 2001.
I graduated 2004.
Yeah. So it was literally like right after graduation. We got back from our tour around May. And it was that summer, so it was literally like 3 years. Like John was waiting to like, when am I going to get the call?
I had already learned all their songs, by the way.
Yes.
Like I would just sit in my bedroom and like listen to their CD because they had recorded a whole full-length album with their guitarist Matt. And so I was already like, I know all. I was totally like Ace Ventura. I'm like, ready to go in, coach. Just give me a chance.
Just send me in, coach.
I learned all the songs. I was ready. I had a couple ideas of some new songs. I think actually, no, I take it back. When you guys gave me the call, I hadn't graduated yet, but it was
coming up.
It was coming up because I remember we played 2 shows that day. The first show I played with you guys was literally the day after my high school graduation. We played at the Del Mar Fair.
Yes, and you came on for one song at the end.
No, that was Spirit West Coast.
Oh, Spirit West Coast. Okay.
Spirit West Coast in May.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the year before. I came up and played one song. when I was officially in the band, we played the Del Mar Fair that afternoon.
Yeah.
And then we went up to Ramona. And
Do you have
did
any pictures
Screamfest.
of that?
Oh, probably.
We'll have to put some pictures in post
Del
and
Mar
put
Fair.
bring some stuff up.
I have pictures of us playing from the Del Mar Fair, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's that show. It's the ones that Kenny took with his black and white film, with his actual film camera.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, and then we went up and played Screamfest. So I think somebody has video of that one.
Yeah.
But I remember I just jumped right in. We played 2 shows the day after I graduated, and I think we actually debuted a brand new song that day that I wrote with you guys.
Yes. Yeah,
Because I came in and I had already might have recycled a riff from my previous band, and then
may or may not have.
we just jumped in, and I just was kind of noodling on this riff. You kind of jumped in, Noah. It just the song just came together like that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like even at the very first show, we debuted one brand new song right off the bat. 'Cause I feel like we all wrote together really well. Like it just felt like it gelled and came very naturally.
I mean, it's like it naturally every guitar player we've had prior, like even when we were in high school, they were always not that it was bad for the band, but they were into different music. You know, Cameron was very much into jazz. Matt kind of took us into that Korn Incubus, like we had mentioned. But you had a very similar Deftones, Tool, Perfect Circle as myself. Noah was always into that like rap, hip hop kind of
pop
punk type stuff.
Yeah.
So he added that aspect to it, but
catchy hooks like that.
But to have like guitar and drums be in sync on like the musical background, I think kind of suited the band the best.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that was kind of our later years, and Brandon was getting married. I was planning to get married. I got married that year, 2004. We still played some Jumping Turtle shows, here in San Diego.
Those were fun.
we played a couple things, but it was really kind of like we all had that reality. Like you were ready to go. Like let's hit the road again.
I had just gotten out of high school, man. I'm like, let's go, and you guys were like, yeah, we already did.
Yeah,
that.
I was like, I'm ready to settle down and get a wife and marry my girlfriend. And we've been married 17 years now, and so cheers to that. Yeah. So it was like I was ready to settle down and get a job and buy a cat and have kids.
I was not ready to get a job. I had a job, but I didn't want to like have a job.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just
and there's so many memories. Like it's funny that you mentioned the Screamfest. I think that was the one that was Northern California, right?
It was in Ramona.
Okay, what was the one that was Northern California? POD played it.
Oh, that was in was that in Chino?
Yeah, Chino.
Or Chico.
But
it was one or the other, but that was called. They only did it one year. I think it was called like Rock in the Park or something like that.
Okay,
and POD
I remember you and I standing in the motorhome, and we have a picture or video of it somewhere, where the motorhome was like angled.
Oh, that was on the side of the road going up to Sacramento.
Yes, so it's like we pulled over on the side of the road. The motorhome was like angled, and we were standing, which was upright for us. But Noah took a picture that was like angled, so like it looked like we were leaning in the motorhome.
It looked like the Michael Jackson music video where he does like the hard lean where his shoes are like nailed into the stage.
Yeah, the motorhome was leaning so far that it looked like you can make it look like we were standing straight.
I think that's when we were on our way up to Sacramento to play a New Year's show.
Yeah, okay.
But no, I remember that festival we played with POD, but that was when Marcos, the guitarist from POD, was not in POD.
Yes.
But we were playing a bunch of shows with his new band at the time called The Accident Experiment up in San Marcos.
Yes.
So, 2 San Diego bands, POD obviously being around since, late 80s, early 90s. We come on the scene and we finally like, oh man, like we can say we were on the same bill as POD. We played a show at POD, but then we almost like felt like we were cheating on our friend because we got to be friends with Marcos while he was in this other band.
Yeah.
But we played with them multiple times at this little dive bar in San Marcos.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to pull up some of those pictures and throw them in there as we're going through this.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of stories, lots of fun pictures. We need to figure out who's got video.
I know that Noah has a lot of video. I have a lot of photos from some of our Santa Barbara shows. We went to Santa Barbara a lot, played a lot in Isla Vista.
I think I brought it up in one of my previous episodes. One of my favorite pictures of us is the one where your cousin Kenny is up spitting fire.
Yeah.
And like we're all turned around.
We'll put it up right now. I got the picture. I'll put it up there.
We're all turned around and Brandon is like facing him, like singing and like reaching out, and because I think we were playing Wake Up, because you can see me and Noah and all of us. We're like,
yes.
So we're all screaming Wake Up as Kenny's spitting fire out over us. And I remember we finished the show. That was our last show, our last song of the night. So okay, a little bit of context, backstory to this story. Up in Santa Barbara, was it specifically Isla Vista? I think
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the
it's
area.
Isla Vista, yeah.
Big time college town in Santa Barbara. There's this one street that it's just all the frat houses and sorority houses and everything for all of the colleges up there. And on weekends, you literally cannot drive a car
You cannot, yes.
down the street. People are just in the streets. They're walking from house to house. Kegs are in the front yards. I mean, it's just it's party central.
Yeah, I made the mistake of with the motor, a 24-foot motorhome and a 24-foot trailer. I pulled down the street, and people were stopping me like, "Are you insane?" I was like, "How am I supposed to unload the gear?" So I'm literally like, "Move!" I was going like a mile an hour, and I'm like bumping people out of the way.
So they had played up there a couple times before I joined the band. The one time that I played, we go up there and we play this show, and a local church in the area owned one of the houses on that street. So it'd be like the ground floor level was the guys lived down there. There were girls that lived upstairs.
Yeah.
And that was kind of their ministry, was to be in the middle of this big, party central and reach out. And
Yeah,
we'd
they would do make hot dogs for like all the drunk people, and so it was like it was called the Jesus House up in Isla Vista. If you're from that area or you went to UCSB, you know the Jesus House. It was two separate houses that had these like trees painted on the front that like kind of went across to the other house.
Yeah. So because it's already parties going on everywhere, nobody's complaining about a noise ordinance.
Yeah.
So we'd come up there every once in a while. We had a 20-foot trailer full of PA live sound equipment.
Oh yeah.
His giant drum set, my half-stack guitar amp, everything. We had all our stuff in there. So like I said, we pulled up the trailer, pulled up the RV, and we would just set up in front of this house facing out into the street and just play a show. And we could play for as long as we want. There's no sound guy or somebody going,
yeah,
you have one
I mean,
more,
it's all frat houses, and all those people were out in the street. And I remember one time we were like, we're gonna go up. I think the one and only time we covered a song was "Pardon Me," and we went up and we played "Pardon Me." And I remember people running down the street because they thought Incubus was playing, and they get there like, oh, so it's not Incubus.
But his brother Brandon, who is our singer, that was one of his more favorite vocalists, was Brandon Boyd from Incubus. So he had a very his inflection and his tone and his voice. He sounded
pitch
a lot
and
like
everything,
pitch and everything. So we start playing a cover of "Pardon Me," and then add on to that.
It wasn't like our own interpretation of the song. It was pretty accurate.
And add on to that however much alcohol people have had. Incubus is playing on our stream, man. We gotta go.
Yes. It's like music goggles.
So all that to say, oh man, it's like, that's why all the cheesy musicians say, the more you drink, the better I sound.
Yes.
I'm gonna start using that one when I play.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're playing in front of this house. We're finishing up, and I mean, you guess you could say like if we had a hit, people that had seen us play and knew our music, there's one song that they all knew. And it was the song "Wake Up," only because if you didn't know any other line in the entire song, there's always a part where it would build up and everyone would just shout "Wake Up."
Yes.
So everyone knew that. We'd get some good crowd participation. Everyone was in on it. So his cousin Kenny, that lived in the house at the time, failed to mention that he had recently learned how to spit fire.
Yes.
And that he was going to do it.
Yeah, up on a balcony above me. I'm like playing drums, and it gets to that part of the song where it's like "Wake Up," and everything like lights up.
It just turned orange.
Like there's a firework that went off, and I look up and I see just like fire. I'm like, are we gonna die? Is the house on fire above me?
I specifically remember, so I was playing, and I was like looking down at the ground and playing, and I just saw like everything just turn orange.
Yeah, like a shadow. Yeah.
So that.
And I have a picture of it. We'll put it up right now.
So that picture that's up right now, it's Kenny is just launching this like 10-foot flame out of his face.
Yes.
And we're all looking up at him, just like what? So we finish playing, we pack everything up, we load everything up. We're just hanging out. We're taking pictures. We're whatever. All right, we're just hanging out now.
Yeah.
Cops roll up. And they come up like, yeah, we got a report of a fire or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, we're done. And they're like, okay, yeah, don't do that again. We're like, that's okay, we're done.
They didn't care about the music or the drunk people in the street or
fire.
people drinking in the street. We weren't drinking, we were sober, but the fire, don't do that again.
Don't do that again. Yeah, which is understandable. That's hazardous.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said,
I wonder who complained about the fire.
Right, that's what I'm curious about. I was like, who actually on a college party street, who called the cops about a fire?
Yeah, that's the
I
threshold.
wonder if it was somebody like 3 blocks over the side.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that pushes them over the limit. Not all the thousands of drunk people.
Somebody standing there with like their 12th beer for the night, going, "Oh, I don't know about that."
Yeah, that's my mom said never play with fire. Hello, there's fire on
so
the street.
we could I mean, we could seriously just sit here and tell stories
Oh,
and
yeah.
make a whole episode out of that. But,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I want to talk about what you're up to now. I want to talk
Yeah.
about what you're doing now. You said you just recently changed jobs. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that. But then I also want to get into your kind of your freelance stuff and what you're
Yeah.
doing. I'm going to link in the description of this video. I'm going to link an Instagram page here where you can get in contact with all the stuff that he's about to tell you about. But
Yeah.
just what's the new job? What are you up to
Yeah,
now?
so basically when I got out of, Pound Foolish, I started to realize like my identity in my life was music. It was creative in a musical avenue, and I kind of sat stagnant for a little while, and then I got into, playing some worship music at some churches. I joined up with this guy named Mike Clark. And we formed a band. We did a couple albums. We played a lot. We went to Africa. We did so many cool things. But I was still like, you know what? When I'm playing music, I'm away from my family.
Yeah.
And I remember I was recording an album with him, and I was at Studio West here in San Diego, and I'm doing my drum tracks, and I had my newborn son Levi at home. And I remember thinking, like, I love drums and I love music and creativity, but I'm like, I want to be at home with my kids.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with Pound Foolish. I was like, I want to be with my wife.
Yeah.
And then it like got to the point where I was like, I want to be with my kids. So I kind of fast forward a few years. I started developing an eye for graphic design, and I had a job that I had a mentor that named Matthew Bennett that just mentored me through my design career, and that was just over 10 years ago. And it really has been my life since 2011. Has been the design world, and I've developed my career through print design, through digital design. I've had many jobs. I've gotten self-employed for a while. I've been hired on by clients. Most recently, right before COVID, I was self-employed. I was laid off from my job. I was just taking up any client I could. I have a couple breweries here in town. I do some work for Bitter Brothers, Balboa's Tap House, like some really cool like can designs and stuff. And I had one client, a medical device company, that wanted me to come in as a consultant, and I worked for them for a couple months as a creative consultant, and they brought me on full time, like right as the pandemic hit. And I was thrilled because all my clients had no work.
Yeah.
And so I was like, praise God, like I've got like some work. And so they brought me on 40 hours a week for pretty much all of 2020. And then they brought me on full time in the end of 2020, which I was thrilled. And so I've been with them since. And then most recently, today was my last day with that company. I'm transitioning to a new company that is an insulin pump for type 1 diabetics.
Okay.
So it's another medical device. It's nothing sexy or fancy. I mean, it kind of hits home to me because my mentor, Matthew, is a type 1 diabetic. And so as he was teaching me everything that I know in design, I was with him in the highs and the lows, like literally, with his sickness. And so
then for this company, what specifically are you going to be doing for them?
Yes, so I'm the lead designer on the marketing team that is basically me taking all of their assets and designing for the public. So if somebody is looking for to learn more about a pump for a type 1 diabetic for insulin, they'll probably be looking at material and stuff that I'm creating. And so it's a new company, awesome opportunities, and I get to create marketing stuff for people that is going to literally keep them alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
And so then it's kind of on the side from that, I also picked up photography back when my first son was born. When Levi was born, I started taking photos of him every day and just kind of developed from there. I did a photo every single week for the first year of his life. I did the same for my second son, Shepherd, and it's kind of developed, and more people have contacted me for photography. And so I do weddings, I do engagements, I do maternity shoots, and so that's kind of another creative outlet. So it's like not only creative design and like print and digital web stuff, but photography. I get to capture moments of people's like intimate family gatherings and weddings and moments in time. I get to freeze those and deliver them to them, and I get pleasure from that. Just like I did when I played music and I helped somebody feel an emotion, I get the same. So it's like I don't need to be a drummer. I can be anything creative and give something to somebody.
And I was just going to say that it's like now here you're able to take, the same creative energy that you had into being a drummer and playing music, which, by the way, everyone watching, I want you to know this guy is the best drummer I've ever personally played with in my life.
Thank you.
And it's mostly because he followed Danny Carey and Neil Peart.
Yep.
And,
Don't forget John. John Bonham.
And John Bonham.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're able to take that same thing of,
Yeah.
you know, oh, I love playing music and I have this creative outlet where I get to write music with my friends and we
Yeah.
get to go out on stage with my friends and do this thing. But now it affords you that opportunity and that time to where you can still do this, but then
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you still go home to your family, to your wife and your two kids,
Exactly.
and you're editing photos or whatever, but you're here and you're present. And
Exactly. Yeah, and like all of these creative avenues, like even drumming and graphic design, photography, a lot of it is just me desiring to have an output of something and figuring out. And there's many times I failed. There's many times I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't like that photo is bad. And so the creative output that I like the most is like that introspective of like, how next time I do this, how can I make it better? Next time I shoot a wedding, what did I not do that I could do better?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I like the most. And just like with music, you're like, I played that show, I messed that thing up. How can I fix that? And so for me, it's not just the delivering something to somebody, but it's that process that I take internally of, I want to make myself better and I want to come up with something new.
Yeah.
And like create something.
Well, you're constantly learning, you're constantly improving. I mean,
Yes.
it's even like what I do and working in a machine shop is that a lot of what I do is not very creative because you have someone that gives you a program and says, okay, go make this part. But there still is that aspect of, okay, the last time I set this machine up or the last time I did this, I did it this way.
Yeah.
Next time I could do it a little bit better.
Yeah,
But as
and
much
that's
as
creative,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm working for someone else, and so I'm doing what they're asking me to do. But then I have some of my side things that I do, and I still have those creative outlets where it's just like, if you're not, I'm gonna say just like as a human being, if you're not if you're consuming more than you're creating, then it's like
Yeah.
you just start going into this
Mhm.
downward spiral, and it could be anything. I mean, like with photography or with music, or if people that really enjoy cooking and like being in the kitchen and cooking or baking is their happy place. Like everybody has a creative outlet, whether you think you do or don't.
Yeah.
Everyone has that thing of whether it's what you do for a paycheck or whether it's what you just do and it's just for your family. You need that, because I've had those coworkers, those guys that you just know, that's the type of guy that he probably goes home, gets a 30-pack on the way home, probably sits in the garage, drinks the 30-pack, kicks the dog, goes inside, yells at his wife. Like, he has nothing but work going for him. And like everybody needs a hobby. Everybody needs some sort of outlet where you are not just a consumer, you are putting something back out into the world, you're creating something. So one of the things you mentioned too is doing stuff for like breweries and stuff. So talk a little bit about Bitter Brothers and the Closer, 'cause that's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, so I know the one of the former pitchers of the San Diego Padres named Heath Bell, and so one of my clients, I walked in, Bitter Brothers, they were down the street from my house, and I went in there one time and I was like, hey, your cans are horrible. I'm sorry.
Came right out with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but your cans need a redesign. And he was like, you know what? My distributor, who was Stone at the time, was like, yes, they've told us that we need a redesign. So I was able to redesign all the cans. It's been a couple years now. I've kind of designed some cans for them.
You redesigned all of them.
Yeah, I redesigned all of them. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then there was an opportunity. I was sitting there one time when I was self-employed. I'd go down there a lot, just like in the middle of the day, and just like, why not go to a brewery where I drink for free and hang out with them and chat, and see if I can drum up some business, So I would just show up and be like, hey, what do you got for me? Like, what any work? And the owner said, hey, I'd like to get into the ballpark. And so I was like, well, I know a former baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
So I connected him with Heath Bell, and we designed a can called The Closer, because Heath Bell was the closer for the Padres. Unfortunately, when we released it, was right at the heat of COVID.
Yep, right
it was
at the
literally,
beginning.
It was March of 2020.
I remember it was like one of the
Yeah.
last things we could go and do when they did the release, and I went and I got one of the commemorative glasses.
Yeah,
it
and
was
it
like one of the
literally,
last
like,
things
shut
we were
down.
able to do before you could go out without having
Yeah.
to
So
wear a mask. or-
unfortunately, it didn't get the hype that I planned it to be.
I do
but,
still see it in stores though. And every time I see it, I always buy one, and I'm like, hey, like my friend designed this logo. And they're
Yes.
like, that's cool. That'll be $14.99. Like,
You're like, I don't get it free. Just come with me, dude. You get it free.
I do want to come out here more often, but it is
Yes,
cool when
yeah.
I'm, I mean, we only live like 10, 15 minutes away from each other, but it's just cool when I go into another store and I see it and I can say,
Yeah.
I know the guy that designed that.
Yeah, and so I have another client, Balboa's Tap House. That I'm sorry, I'm throwing all these names out there. I don't know if that's like right to do, but hey, if you want to endorse John here in his blog, Balboa's Tap House, you can send him some stuff. I'm sure he'll plug you every week.
Yeah, if
But
you serve good beer, I'm there.
Yeah, so Balboa's Tap House, they got great food, they got great beer, and they just got their liquor license, so they have a full array of bottles of whiskey and tequilas and everything.
All
And
right.
so they've got a couple beers they've had me design, so I really kind of become like the freelance beer guy here in San Diego, which is kind of cool.
All right. I mean, and that's, like maybe you're not doing that as your full-time job now, but just, over time you build that reputation and,
Yeah.
who knows what comes up with that. So we already kind of touched on it a little bit, sort of like the pandemic and how that affected you. You kind of lost one job, started other stuff. Like, what are kind of some other ways that affected you, positive, negatively? Honestly, it kind of seems like you came out a little bit on the positive with, you lost a job, but then you really dove full force into freelance, but then you kind of got some of these other jobs that keep you going a little bit. So.
Yeah, so basically, like right before the pandemic, let's say like Christmas of 2019, I was self-employed, working from home, working from my garage. My wife has been an awesome stay-at-home mother, homeschooling our boys. They're both 7 and 9 now, and so from day one, she's been homeschooling our kids. So she's a stay-at-home mom, one income through me, and I was self-employed. So literally when COVID hit, and I was like, wait, my kids can't go to school. Check, that's fine. They're homeschooled.
No big deal.
It sucked. They couldn't go to the zoo. And I'm like, and I can't go into the office. Well, I work from home. So literally, the only thing that changed is that I had to put on a stupid mask if I went to the grocery store.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that changed.
Now, what happened with your church? Did they close at all, or did they?
So what happened with the church is we lost our space. So we closed.
You were still meeting at a school.
Yeah,
that's right. You were still meeting at an elementary school.
We were meeting at a middle school. Actually, no, it was high school. Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So we were meeting at a high school, and of course, since the high school closes, obviously something that happens on a Sunday that is not in school involved,
they can't be
must be closed.
They can't be liable for if people are here and they get sick, they were on the grounds, they were on the property.
Exactly.
So now, so that's kind of, I would almost say, kind of what I was getting into is that's probably the only thing that your kids lost is that they weren't going to their church functions.
Yeah, but it was only a couple months, and then our church found a location. They started opening up. We're firm believers that we can't forsake the fellowship, and we have the the Constitution behind us that even though there's a mask mandate or a COVID-19 mandate, it doesn't mean that I can't practice my religion and meet with fellow believers and learn the Word of God.
Private home and yeah. So you talked about homeschooling the kids.
Yeah.
That's obviously near and dear to my heart. I was a homeschool kid until high school. I went to a public high school, but I've heard all the jokes. I've heard all the criticism, all of the, if you homeschool your kids, they're going to be weird. I'm like, well, you know what, maybe I am a little bit weird, but that's fine. That's who I am. That's where I'm at.
But you know what I would like to say to that, because I've had a couple people ask me that, like, well, what if your kids are weird? And I like to ask them, well, what do you mean by weird? Okay, so a lot of the times their answer will be, they don't know the trendy apps. They don't know the hit songs. They don't know the dance moves, the Fortnite stuff. My boys, they have a lot of social experiences. They have obviously they're friends from church. They play Little League up the street where
sports,
I played. Yeah. So literally the first time we put our kids in Little League, and they're like, "You don't know the Fortnite dance?" And I like to tell people when they say, "Well, what if your kids are weird?" And I like to say, "Listen, the way that I was growing up through middle school and high school, I was weird because I was not protected, and I was acting like the world. I would do the things that everyone did. So yes, a homeschool kid is weird, but
so you would have been the kid that knew the TikTok dances and stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, if everyone else is doing it, I'm gonna do
exactly. And so, but as a kid, you're like, well, that kid's weird. As an adult, you look down and you're like, that weird kid actually does. It's a good thing that he doesn't know that stuff because he's not glued to his phone. He's not glued to his apps. He's not texting. He's not bullying kids through texting, all that stuff. And so I want my kids to be weird. I wish I was weird. But
now they're learning about
weird is
music.
not a bad thing. You think that it's a bad thing because it's the word weird. It's basically set apart. You're different. And the world thinks that's weird.
And now your kids are learning about good music through you.
Exactly.
Because I know just kind of for myself, being homeschooled at least up through 8th grade and then going to a public high school, I really firmly believe I don't think I would have gotten as into music and playing guitar as I did if I'd been going to a public school, because what it was is my mom has always played piano. My parents have always been somewhat musical. My mom especially played piano. She kind of taught me piano a little bit when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They gave me drum lessons when I was 5 years old. I told somebody that story recently, and they're like, what parent in their right mind gives a 5-year-old a drum set? And they're like, my parents.
Yeah.
And drum lessons and the whole thing. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was fine. But I was about 9 years old the first time I picked up a guitar.
Yeah.
My aunt and uncle were visiting from Missouri, and my aunt's husband at the time, he was a big-time guitar guy. He had a bunch of electric guitars and stuff at home where they lived and stuff. And we had this old acoustic guitar that had been just kind of flopping around the house for a while. And he taught me, I always remember the first song I learned how to play was Yellow Submarine by the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no internet. There's nowhere you could just like type up, Yellow Submarine guitar chords, boom, there. But he just sat there and like taught me, I mean, it was like G, C, D, like super simple. You know what? But I remember.
I think we should cut to a video of you playing Yellow Submarine on the piano right now. No, okay.
We'll cut something in there. We'll throw that in there. So, 9 years old, I'm learning. He taught me like a really basic little like blues riff, like a walk up and down riff, and Yellow Submarine. And I remember that was the first thing I learned. And from there, we had this big chord chart. It was like poster size, hanging on the wall. And I would just sit there and I would just stare at it, and I would learn the chords.
Yeah.
And then what I would do is I'd throw on a CD of my favorite bands at the time and whatever, and I would play along until something kind of sounded right and kind of learned by ear. So with those last few years of being homeschooled before high school, you know, the way that your day works out is you have this much work to do.
Yeah.
And however fast you get through it, like you're not, we have to be in this subject for 60 minutes, or we have
sit
to.
there.
It's just, okay, here's the lesson, here's the work. When you finish, you're done.
Yeah.
So my motivation, whereas I think a lot of kids were into, you know, video games or, you know, whatever, my motivation was, well, the faster I finish all my schoolwork for the day, I can just go sit in my room and play my guitar all day long. And I would just listen to CDs and just play. And I think if I wasn't homeschooled, I don't think I would have gotten as into music or as proficient as I did. Because I still, I mean, I can't read a bit of sheet music. You put sheet music in front of my face, it's like reading hieroglyphics. But I have a really tuned ear for playing along with other musicians and figuring stuff out and kind of, that doesn't sound right. That's, you know, whatever. So I want to kind of see now your experience of the same thing. It's like now, you know, we're the adults and you're the one with kids, and now you're seeing your kids come up.
Yeah,
you know,
and
in that world.
Public school, there's so much time wasted, because when you have a teacher that has 30 kids in their class, it's probably a lot less now because when COVID hit, a lot of people started homeschooling, and we saw that hit. I'll talk about that in a second. But when you have so many kids in a room, and the teacher gives one direction, let's all fold your papers in half, and the people's like, wait, I don't know which way, a hot dog or a hamburger. You know, they're trying to figure out which way, and you got like Johnny over there in the corner, and you got like Susie over there. She doesn't know what the heck's going on, and your kid's like bored because it's taking so long to do the work, and so that like that prolongs. The kids are there for God knows how many, 7 hours, and then they come home and they have homework. Yeah, I mean, yes, my kids will prolong the day sometimes and not listen to my wife and think they can't do the work, or they get distracted and stuff. But I'm hoping as they get older, you know, I have this my photography apprentice. He comes with me. He's my second shooter for weddings.
Oh, cool.
Really great photographer. Maybe you should link his stuff too, because he's really great. His name's Blake.
Yeah. Send me his info afterwards. I'll link both Kory and Blake in the description of this video.
Yes. So Blake's a great photographer. Anyway, so he's a homeschool kid. He's in high school. He's just finishing up. I think he's starting.
He's a young guy.
Yeah. He's finishing his last year this year. But he does homeschool during the day. He does college courses. So he finishes homeschool, goes college courses. He's been doing it for like a year or so, and then he works in the evenings at Target, and then he works with me on the nights and weekends if I have him. So it's like you think about like what a high school kid in homeschool can accomplish and actually get such a jump start,
or just to even have that kind of drive at his age. Like that's, for someone his age right now, to have that kind of drive and ambition is unheard of.
Yeah.
To not only doing his regular schoolwork, he needs to graduate high school, taking not even college prep, actual college courses.
Yeah, actual college courses,
doing stuff with you on the weekends, working a part-time job. Like most kids now are like, are you excited to get your driver's license? Or like, nah, I'll just Uber. Like, how do you Uber if you don't have a job? My parents pay for it.
And so he's gonna be able to take those credits and transfer to Grand Canyon University and probably finish in less than 4 years because he's already, so the basically, like, if you think about homeschool, and it's more efficient, you have a one-on-one, or in my wife's situation, one-on-two.
And that was my sister
know?
and I too. It was just my mom teaching me and my sister, so 1-on-2.
Yeah.
But especially when they're in different grades, it's like you kind of work with this one, and okay, here's your stuff for grade 2, and then here's your stuff for grade 3, or whatever.
Yeah, and it's actually my youngest Shepherd has actually learned to read at the level that my oldest is, and so my wife is now teaching them. She's trying to get it to almost the point where my youngest is advanced enough that she's teaching them the same thing. Like she's going through like spelling. She gives them the same spelling test. She gives them the same like vocabulary things. And
That's
so
awesome.
it's like he learned by osmosis, by the
Just being in the
first
room.
couple of years being in the room, sitting there playing with cars, hearing his brother talk about the sounds of the letters. When he started kindergarten, he was advanced.
That's awesome. I remember when I was over here a couple of years ago. I think it was right after the Tool album came out, and we drove around listening to the Tool album. We can tell that story in a minute, but. I remember we were here and we'd listened to the new Tool album. And, come over. I'm gonna barbecue. We'll get some beers and stuff. And you had just started to teach the boys about both recycling and math.
Yes.
Or they were like, maybe like Levi was learning math. You were teaching about recycling, whatever. We're sitting here drinking beers. We had our beers in aluminum cans.
Yes.
And they had this whiteboard. Every time they collected a can, they would add like 5 cents or whatever. And, okay, well now
California CRV.
Now I've got $1.25 or something, and we've got our beers sitting on the tables, and the boys are coming over like shaking the can. They're like, "Are you done with this shit?" I'm like, "No, like I'm not done with my beer, man."
They're like, drink.
They're over here like dumping our beers out because they wanted the recycling money.
Yeah.
But no, I can definitely say I remember that too, and that I've always struggled with math, so it's funny that I'm a machinist now. But I remember in English, coming from homeschool, going into a public high school, by the time I got to high school English class, I felt, not that I had like a chip on my shoulder or was like, I'm so much better than, but I started to quickly realize that I had a better reading comprehension, better understanding of grammar. Most of that's out the window now, but just my understanding of like the subject of English in high school was so much more advanced than most of my classmates, and I think that was from homeschooling. I remember one year in one of my English classes in high school, we were doing the thing where we would read like a play out of one of the textbooks. Maybe it was like Beowulf or something. I forget specifically what it was, whatever, but the teacher would get up there and first ask for volunteers. Who wants to volunteer to read this part? Who wants to volunteer? And of course, nobody raises their hands because we are all a bunch of teenage turds. And so the teacher starts doling them out. You're going to read this character. You're going to read this character. And the first day she did this, she gave me the character that, like the main character that had the most lines and the most paragraphs and the most whatever in the play. So we're bouncing back and forth, and I'm reading my parts and whatever. So then we get to day 2. We come in the next day, same thing. Who wants to read whatever, blah, blah, blah. She gives me the exact same part. And I'm like, I read for that yesterday. She's like, yeah, but you did such a good job. You should do it again. And in my mind, I'm thinking, doesn't that mean that they should practice?
Yes, exactly.
She's like, because I can read without going, so she like almost like kept picking on me because I could read fluently.
Because it was easy. You made her job easy, essentially.
Today, Junior.
And I mean, it's funny because I went to public school. The public school here in San Diego jacked me up. I don't know how to spell. They basically, the system that they were learning was it wasn't teaching you the rules of the English language. It was memorization. It was, this is how you spell that word. Just remember it. And so I didn't
regurgitation.
Learn,
It's not learning how to figure it out and reason.
So there's actually rules to the English language, and I walk out of my office sometimes and I hear my wife explaining the rules of like the vowels, and I'm like, rules like words that end in E. I'm like, oh, I never knew that. That's amazing.
Like the old Brian.
I'm almost
Regan.
4 years old. I'm like, wow.
like you're sitting there going, oh wow, that's really interesting.
Tell me more.
Like the old Brian Regan bit. It's like I before E, except after C, and sounding like A in a neighboring way, and on weekends and holidays.
Yes. Yeah, and so I never thought about doing homeschool. I was literally like thinking, my wife's gonna work, I'm gonna work. I mean, we send our kids to private school.
We live in Southern California. Like that first thought is there's no way we can afford to not have both of us work.
Yeah, but my wife found this sermon from this guy named Vodi Bakum, and it was impactful because he talked about how he homeschools his kids, And when they're at age 13, they go on the road with him, and he teaches them real life application. They start helping him book his speaking engagements. They help him with his finances. They learn business essentially with
Wow.
him. So he has his own business of like speaking at these churches and events and conferences and stuff. And so they come in to basically work with him on the road. And he said a quote that has always stood with me. And I tell people when if they're thinking about homeschool, or if they're like, oh, I don't know, public school's fine, whatever. He said, why do we keep sending our kids to Caesar for education, and we're surprised when they come back acting like Romans? And it made me think, like, that's so true. Like, you send your kid to the world, they will go to public school, they will learn what the government wants them to learn, they will learn about the pronouns, the gender, the transgender, all these things, cisgender, all that stuff.
And
the
that age
things
is
that,
way younger
yeah.
than, like, whether you agree with them learning those things or not, which I know you don't, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, even parents who do agree, it's like, at some point you have to agree that they're teaching that at such a young age that they're not even allowing kids to be kids anymore.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
like, let them just be kids and be innocent and not think about sex or gender or
Yeah.
anything. But it's like they're teaching it younger and younger and just
Yeah, and
brainwashing
it's like
these kids.
whether you're a person of faith or not, you let your kids go to where there's other kids their age. There is peer pressure. There is social media. There's a wickedness of do what you want to do. You're away from your parents. There's no accountability. There's no the authority in their life. The primary authority of a child's life when they're in elementary, middle school, and high school is their teacher.
Yeah.
They're with their teacher more than they're with their parents. They wake up in the morning. They're about an hour or so in the morning. They go to school all day long.
Mm-hmm.
They come home. The parents don't come home until 5. They
Yep.
do dinner time, a couple hours. Literally, the authority figure in their life is their teacher.
Yeah.
And their teacher's teaching them what they were told to teach. And there's no disciplinary action being done at school. So these kids literally live a life of I do what I want. This is my world. And
No consequences.
Yeah. And then your kid comes home and you're like find out that they're pregnant or that they're sexually active or that they've seen pornography and you're surprised. And that really started coming to me like I don't want my kids being exposed to that stuff until
Yeah.
they're 18 years old. They live in my house and they abide by my rules.
Yeah.
And that is literally a right that I have to train my kids how I want, teach them. We go through a charter school program, so we do get funding from the state. We get curriculum from the state, but we have the option to buy our own curriculum.
Yeah.
We could teach them an all Christian curriculum.
And
You
I
know.
think that's similar to what my parents did when I was homeschooled. It wasn't called charter school, but that's
Yeah.
what it was. Like there was a main office that we went to. We were enrolled there. We would get the curriculum from them. We
Yeah.
would do the work at home. Every so often, they would maybe have everyone meet up at a local park and like do a PE class for
exactly.
social purposes,
Yeah.
whatever. One parent would come up and say, "Hey, I want to teach a group Spanish class," and so everyone would come together. Or not everyone, but if you wanted to sign up, you could sign up. And you would go to the homeschool office, and they had a room in the back, and you could go and take the Spanish class. It was like once a week or whatever. So. I think a lot of what I did was charter school before the term charter school was a thing. Because it was exactly that. Like, we got curriculum from someone. My parents weren't going and buying it on their own.
Yeah, and we did that for a few years. We were buying our own
and
curriculum.
you can do that, and you can kind of mix the two, like you're saying. Like, if you want to mix in
Yeah.
biblical stuff of, like, if you're going to a charter school, like, the charter school is not a Christian school. Much like if you went to, like, a private Christian school, they work Bible study stuff into the curriculum. But a regular homeschool charter school is going to just be whatever. But you as the parents can intersplice that in. Okay, well, we're going to go from math to learning about Genesis.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like-
Yeah, and it's like, and the science class is not like 500 million years ago. It's like,
Yeah.
no, the science class would be, teaching, creation and stuff like that.
Right.
And so, obviously, what the nice thing about the charter schools is we get funding from the state instead of them paying a teacher in a school for the attendance of our kid. They give us money so that we can buy extracurricular things. We can send them to jiu-jitsu, and they're enrolled in that type of stuff. We can buy printer ink and things like that.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things that we get from the state, which is nice to have. My fear is that with the way things are going, that they might cut that off if my kids don't get vaccinated. I don't see how it could be.
Which is interesting because they're encouraging everyone to do at-home learning. So if you're at home, it should be none of their business if they're vaccinated.
But what they're going to do is they're going to push that every kid needs to be vaccinated, even if you're in public school. And then if you're in charter, which technically is state funded, if you want the funding, you must comply. And so basically at that point, we would just file for our own.
Yeah.
You file for your own school, and then you do
they
your own
even
thing.
just shut down the private school at Foothills Christian Church out there in El Cajon. It started with they just shut down the preschool because like the 3-year-olds weren't wearing masks. But last weekend we were talking to some friends of ours who the wife went to Foothills all the way through high school, and I could be wrong, I'll have to look it up after this video, but I think she said they shut the whole school down. But I always thought the loophole was if it's a private school, so like you say, you're getting state funding, so there is kind of that uncertainty.
There is a little bit of a tie,
but I thought this whole time the loophole was if you were paying to go to a private school that they could have their own rules, but the city or the state or whoever came in and shut down Foothills Christian School.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that story, so I can't really speak to that. But I do know that we do have a little bit of a tie to the state. So if it gets to the point where they, require, I don't think that how they could or when they would, but if they get to the point where they're saying, like, even if you're completely homeschooled, your kids don't come in, you need vaccinations to get the funding, we would just cut ties with the state and do our own thing.
Yeah, I just came across, I'll probably pull it up and put it in here at some point, but I just came across this video clip today from, I think it was MSNBC or something, and I don't know who this woman was. Again, I'll have to look it up. I'll put the info on the video later. I don't know if she's part of the school district or a state, something, whatever, but I watched the video. I heard the words come out of her mouth, so it wasn't like I read this and it was edited and pasted, and like this woman in this video literally said the words, "We need to break away from the idea that kids belong to the parents."
Oh,
just that statement all alone. Like, I'm just for anyone watching who doesn't already know me, I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids, so I'm not sitting here trying to give anyone parental advice. But even as someone who's not a parent, like, what? We need to break the idea that the kids belong to the parents. And I'm not saying that they're like property, but it's like those are your kids. Like, your wife birthed those children. You two are raising those kids. Those are your kids to teach and to raise and to. So for this person to come out and give this idea that all of a sudden now we need to break this idea that kids belong to the parents and they actually belong to the community and they belong to this and belong to that. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You're going to go around to all your neighbors and be like, oh, well, my kids outgrew their pants. You all need to pitch in and give me some money to buy new clothes for my kids. Like, the community isn't buying your kids clothes.
I mean,
our community isn't buying them food. Isn't like
our society established that you are not an adult until you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
They know that until you're 18, and I think, like, for gun laws, it in California at least, it changed to 21. You can't buy any firearm until you're 21.
Really?
Yeah. It used to be handgun was 21 and a rifle was 18.
I knew that about tobacco. I did not know that about guns.
Yes.
Oh,
so everything's pushed to 21. So literally they're like, wait, 18-year-old, get whatever you want. And now they're like, no, not until you're 21. But then to say that a 17-year-old is not his parents' responsibility is counterculture from what they're originally saying, is that if you can't have rights in society at 16 by yourself, then you need a parental guardian. Like, I can't take my kid,
guardian.
I can't take my kids to the doctor without saying that I am their guardian. And so literally, until my kids are 18, they are under my authority. They're under my control and my protection. And so my protection extends to all attributes of their life. Like, my kids, they're inside right now playing some Xbox. They're on the computer. I have parental guidance on everything. My boys can't speak to anyone on the computer unless it's authorized. They can't go on any websites. Their YouTube is literally like a kid's YouTube. I've limited and protected my kids from predators and from people trying to infiltrate into them to think something that they should be thinking against from what we stand for, which is we are God-fearing, Bible-believing, gun-toting Americans. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Amen to that. So then that actually perfectly rolls into one of the next things that we could talk about is you already kind of talked about your business, what you do working for other people, your freelance stuff. So you do, photography, you do other stuff. You're a lot of times carrying around pretty expensive gear.
Yeah.
And I know you told me a little while back, for anyone, again, if you're just tuning in, if you're new here, we live in Southern California. So what I'm about to say might sound very shocking. You managed to get your concealed carry in Southern California.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It's a 2-year permit. It's not for anyone who doesn't understand, a concealed carry permit gives you the right to carry a firearm that is fully loaded, concealed. Anyone can drive a gun around under the rules, basically treat it like alcohol. away from the driver, in a locked case, keep the ammo separated from the
Right.
gun.
Yep.
In order to have the gun out of the locked case, ammo in it, and on your person, you need a permit. California is a may issue state. A lot of other states or red states are shall issue. It basically means I say I want a permit, they'll give it to me.
That's why I think anybody that's watching this that doesn't live in California is going, why was it so hard to get? I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like,
So California is a may issue, meaning they're like, oh, we may or may not give it to you. You need to have a probable cause, and with that cause, you only get it for 2 years. So it's not like you get it and you have it for a driver's license. It's only a 2-year permit.
So, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of your process it took you to get it. But so when that expires, do you have to go through the whole process like you're starting all over again?
The renewal.
It's not like your driver's license where you just pay a fee and renew.
Well, the renewal process is a little bit easier. There's a longer line. When I got mine, it was pre-COVID, and there was a little bit of wait. It was probably 3 to 6 months for me to get my first appointment and get in and get my probable cause and go through it. It probably took about 6 months of a period of time, and some good fees. And when I received my permit, well, when COVID hit and everyone and their mother went out to buy a firearm, they didn't own a firearm. They didn't realize they should have a firearm because the Second Amendment allows us to carry and bear arms. So everyone went out to buy firearms, and they thought, wait, now I have a handgun. I want to conceal it. And so they went to file for a concealed weapons permit. Now it's a 1-year wait. So just in order to get the first initiation interview, it's a 1-year wait. So I was lucky enough right now. I was lucky enough to get in. I have a friend that just recently, it was last August he applied. August 2021 he applied, and his interview is August 2022.
Wow.
So it's 1 year just to get the first interview. So
Okay,
that's just about a time because of how many people.
So then if you want to renew, do you have to wait in that line?
No, I get to cut the line to renew. Yeah.
Okay, so, and let's talk a little bit about, so you had to kind of basically almost draft up like a business proposal as to why, explaining this is why I need this.
Yes. So basically in California, you need to give a probable cause. Your life is threatened. You have to show, like for my case, I was self-employed, and so, or I am self-employed, and so I carry around a lot of equipment, expensive equipment. I gave examples of scenarios where I had felt threatened prior to having my concealed weapon. One guy approached me. I got out of my car. I saw he was sitting on his porch. I went in to shoot photos of this real estate house. By the time I came out to my car, he had walked across the street, was standing next to my car, waiting for me. He saw me pull my equipment out. He knew what I had, and I was in a not a nice neighborhood of San Diego, and he was waiting for me. And so I waited until a car was passing and a girl was walking a dog, and I got in my car and drove away. And so I spelled all that out, that like maybe something might have happened, maybe not. But the fact is that I said that I go to church, and there was a lot of shootings happening at churches and synagogues. I have a lot
another
of
one just happened recently.
Yeah, and I have a lot of equipment, a lot of expensive equipment. I take to people's houses. I take to public areas. I'm in canyons a lot. I actually put on there protection because there's mountain lions up in some areas of San Diego, and I'm literally out in the boonies taking photos with like some couple and their little baby. Like, what if a mountain lion comes out? Like, literally protection from the wildlife as well, not just people.
Not just your gear, but literally the people.
Like, literally like protecting if a mountain lion jumps out.
I think that was some good conversation for now. Definitely look forward to having you back on more times in the future so we can tell more stories of being on the road. And
we'll have to do a full episode of just like the crazy Pound Foolish stories.
I feel like we'll have to see if we can get Noah in on one. If we can get the three of us here and just tell stories of I'll give just sort of the short version because this is always one that pops into my brain, and we'll tell more of it later. But when we were driving up to Sacramento, and we were lost, and the fog was so thick.
That was in Ventura. It was in Ventura.
I thought we were way up in Northern California.
No, it was in Ventura.
So we're driving, and we're like on the side of this mountain face. With like no K-rail, no guardrail between us and going off the side of this mountain that we're looping around. Lost before the days of smartphones, no GPS, and the fog was so thick that we literally couldn't see more than like 2 feet in front of the windshield, to where all 4 of us, I think Brandon was driving. You were up in the passenger seat. Noah and I were there just along for the ride. And we were all up there just laughing hysterically because we were so terrified. We're just like, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, if the wind whips just enough, we're in a camper with a 20-foot trailer. We're going to go toppling off the side of this hill.
Yes.
So just stories like that. But I think it would be super awesome if either just you and me get together, we tell stories.
Yeah.
If we can get Noah in here, that would be awesome. But again, thanks for bringing your backyard, bringing your
Yes.
gear out. Thanks for the whiskey.
Yeah. Cheers.
And,
Yeah.
cheers. So again, like I said, I'm going to link some stuff in the description of this video so you can check out what Kory's doing. If you need a photographer, if you need a graphic designer, and then also his apprentice that he mentioned, I'll put all the info in the description of this. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, it's not stupid if it works. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.